Hi, this is Brandon, and I'm making a video for you to show you an easy way to learn all of your major and minor scales. This is something that I go over with my younger students so frequently that I thought I should make this into a video in a downloadable resource. So I'm just going to walk you through this. It is really not hard. All you have to know how to do is count, 1 through 8, and know part of your alphabet in English, and that's all it takes. Okay, so first, let's talk about the rules of how to make a major or minor scale. These are scales that are called diatonic scales. Um, so the first rule is they're made up of 7 notes, and they use the letters of the alphabet in order: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then they start over. And you can start on any of those letters, and that's how you get the different scales. The big rule here is every note name gets used one time in a scale, regardless of accidentals. So you can't have a C natural and a C sharp in the same diatonic scale, and you can't have a flat and a sharp in the same diatonic scale. So, for example, you can't have a G sharp and a B flat in the same scale. You could have a G sharp and an A sharp in the same scale. And A sharp and B flat are called enharmonic tones. The enharmonic pitches, they're both technically the same note. On a piano, if you play a B flat or an A sharp, those are the same note. But when we're talking about learning our scales and when we're analyzing things in terms of harmony and music theory, we have to differentiate key signatures so that they match the scale and key and mode that we're in. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at C major up here. I have written all of the notes here. We have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So this is one octave of a C major scale. C major has 0 flats and 0 sharps. So this one's done. And I've labeled all of the scale notes here, which we would call this scale degrees. That's the first scale degree. The second scale degree is D. The third scale degree is an E. And this is going to be useful for us to know how to get from C major, which has no sharps and no flats, to other keys that have sharps and flats, and know what those are going to be. The great thing about this is there's a pattern to it that we can follow. So we're going to use something called the circle of fourths, or something called the circle of fifths. They're the same circle, just going in opposite directions. And something that goes along with the circle of fourths and fifths called the order of flats, or the order of sharps, if you're going in the other direction. Now, there are wonderful charts that you can download from the internet that show the whole circle and all the relationships and the key signatures and everything. I'm not going to recreate one of those here. If you want one, it's very easy to find one by searching for it. What I want to do is more get into what you can think about to do this on your own without having to have anything except you have to remember your order of flats and or order of sharps. So let's talk about this real quickly. The order of flats, what we're talking about is if you have 1 flat, it's a B. If you have 2 flats, you have B flat and E flat. If you have 5 flats, you have B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat, right? For sharps, it's the exact same thing, except you start on the other end. If your scale has 1 sharp, it's an F sharp. If it has 2 sharps, it's an F sharp and a C sharp. If it has 6 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp. All right? So if we know this, a mnemonic device you can use is BEAD, greatest common factor. That's what I learned when I was a beginning band student. So you can memorize BEAD, greatest common factor, to write it out, and just remember that the exact same thing backwards is the order of sharps. Okay, so we've got that. Now we have to figure out, when we go from C major, where are we going? Let's start off by going through the fourths side of the circle of fourths. All right, that means we're going to start with our C major scale, and we're going to look at the scale degrees. Remember, that's the numbers that we've made. So we're going to go up to the fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth scale degree of C is F. So if we move on down here and go to F major, this is how we're going to do it. We know that going from C one step along the circle of fourths is landing you on an F. And because we've gone one step down the circle of fourths, we know that it has one flat. All right, and I've notated that here. F major, one flat. So which flat is it? We're going to look over here. Order of flats, we're starting on this side. One flat means it's a B flat. All right, and that is your F major scale. If you wanted to make the next step along this, you'd start with F major and you'd go up to the fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's B flat. And so we would write our B flat scale out here, and I'll do it over here. All right. I didn't write the treble clef, but know that I've written this in treble clef. All right. So since we've gone to B flat major, one step up from one flat, that means we're on two flats now. Two flats, we have a B flat and an E flat. All right, and that's your B flat major scale. You can keep going. The next one you would count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So your next one would be E flat with 3 flats. Your 3 flats would be B, E, A, and you can keep going all the way around. Let's take a look at an example of doing this from the sharp side. So if we're going down the sharp side, it means we have to move in fifths instead of fourths. So we're still going to start with C major, and we're going to count up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth note of C major is G. So if we're going down the sharp side of the circle, we go up to the fifth, so we're going to land on G major. And because it's the first step along the circle away from C, it has one sharp, and we know that sharp has to be F sharp because that's the first sharp in the order of sharps. So if we come over here and write our F sharp, that's the G sharp or the G major scale with one sharp. You could do the same thing over here as we did here. To figure out anything else, we would go up 1/5 from there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth note of G major is D. So if we go one step away from G major with one sharp, we would land on D major with 2 sharps. So our 2 sharps would be, remember, coming over here to the order of sharps, F sharp and C sharp. I'm not going to write it out here, but let's do another example. Let's say we're looking at D flat major, and I've just told you D flat major has 5 flats. Here in a moment, I'll show you how you can determine how many flats a scale has without having to walk all the way around the circle. So D flat major has 5 flats. So what are they going to be? Remember, we're starting over here on the order of flats side. So it's going to be B flat 1, E flat 2, A flat 3, D flat 4, G flat 5. So we can write over here what we're going to end up with. So we're going to have a B flat, an E flat, an A flat, and then a D flat. All right. Oops, and a G flat. Don't forget G flat, or we have not created a major scale. All right, so this is your D flat major scale with 5 flats, and that's how you apply the order of sharps or order of flats to your scales. All right, so I am going to flip this board over, and we'll take a look at something else. Okay, so now let's take a look at the same concept, but I'm getting away from the notated staves and just using the letters here. And I've written out the order of the keys if you're moving in fourths or if you're moving in fifths. And you'll see here I have capital letters in the left column, lowercase letters in the right column. Lowercase letters indicate minor scales. So the relative minor of C major is A minor. So that means C major and A minor have the same key signature, which in this case is no flats and no sharps. If we start here, this is the order of fourths. So we start with 0 flats, then 1 flat, 2 flats, 3 flats, 4 flats, 5 flats, 6 flats. And if you look at these note names or these key names, you should recognize a pattern, right? If we have our order of flats, or let's start with order of flats. If we have that we looked at on the other side, which is bead, greatest common factor. All right. So if we start with that and look over here at the fourths, you can see that pattern exists in the middle of this. B, E, A, D, bead, and then G, C, F, right? So it's out of order or started in the middle, right? But the order of flats is still there. And so we can see that that's actually how the circle of fourths moves. So if you can just write out, if you start with C and you have this memorized, then well, it's C, F, B, E, A, D, G, C, F. And if we take a look at the order of sharps, or moving down the circle of fifths, it's the same thing except we're moving in the other direction, right? So we go from C to G to D to A to E to B, and then we're back over here to F, but it's F sharp. All right, and that's because if we wrote out B major, the fifth note of B major would be F sharp, not F natural. Okay, so if you have your order of flats / sharps memorized, you should be able to figure out how to move around the circle in fourths or in fifths, all right? And then once you do that, we can take that rule we talked about, which was that every note name has to be used once and only once in any scale. So I've written out, so here's how we figure this out. I've just decided arbitrarily. We're going to find G sharp natural minor. Natural minor just tells us that it's the basic diatonic minor scale. There are a couple of varieties of minor, and we're not going to go into those today. All right, so to find our G sharp natural minor scale, the first thing I'm going to do, I know we're starting on G something, right? Obviously it's G sharp, but let's just deal with the note names to start with and deal with accidentals second. So the first thing we're going to do is just write out these note names, knowing that we can only use each one time. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right? So that's one octave of some kind of G scale. All right, so we're looking at G sharp natural minor. So we're going to take a look over here at our sharp side, and we see that it's the fifth one down, or that it has 5 sharps rather. So it's the 6th scale down, but it's the 5 sharps because the first scale starts on 0, right? All right, so we know we have 5 sharps. So let's look over here. And since we're on the circle of fifth side dealing with sharps, we're moving this direction. All right, so we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we're going to find these letters over here and put a sharp with them. All right, so it's going to be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. This one happens twice because it's a full octave. And then D sharp, A sharp, and we're done. This is your G sharp natural minor scale. Now, as a student, I highly recommend that you get out a sheet of paper and do this for every major and minor scale. Okay, and you may have noticed that we have 7 accidentals here, and I only went to 6. You can keep moving on from that. It's easy enough to do. You would just go, the 4th note of G flat major is C flat, and then the over here we would go to A flat, so that's 7, and then over here the 5th note of F sharp major is C sharp, and the 5th note here would be A sharp. Okay, so with this information, you should be able to easily learn all of your major and minor scales, which is one of the most important things that you can do as a student of music. With so many of my students, we spend a lot of time going over this because in Western music tradition, knowing all of your major and minor scales means that you're just through memorizing all of that and learning how it works, you're encountering most of the music that you're ever going to read in that tradition. All right, so I hope this is useful to you. I hope that everything's clear. If you have questions, please feel free to comment on the video or send me a message, and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you. Have a good day.